Welcome to my podcast, Extraordinary with Neman. My name is Neman and I'm your host. My today guest I've been following on social media for the last 5 years. And the more I've been learning about him, the more I was intrigued and the more I wanted to know. And finally, the day has come. He is not living in Chicago, although he was born here. But today he is here and we're going to have a conversation. We're going to learn about his life. He's an activist. He is an author. He is a creator. His new book, Eat What Elephant Eats, just hit the shelves. So let's welcome Dominick Thompson.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello,
Appreciate
Dominick. Welcome to your city, right? I said that correct.
Yeah, born and raised West Side, specifically West Side of Chicago.
West Side of Chicago.
Yeah.
And now, where do you live now?
I live in ATL, Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you come to the city to visit a family. So we have an opportunity to do this podcast, but you're also having a signing of your book, right?
Yeah. Shout out to the amazing team at Spirit Elephant
Love
for
them.
the opportunity to bring this amazing hard work of creation to the Chicago community that's into plant-based food. So yeah.
Perfect.
And meeting you and hanging out with you and connecting with other like-minded folks in the community is always a pleasure too when I come home to Chicago. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it makes me so happy that you're here because, as I said, I've been following you for a really long time and I just love everything that you do. But I want to get to know you a little bit deeper than what we see on social media.
Deep dive.
And I want to literally start from your childhood. Like, what are your first memories? Where are you growing up in Chicago? Who is in the house? What do you do? Who you play with? Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
So there's 3 amazing women in the house and 1 young boy, me. It was me, my 2 older sisters, and my wonderful, wonderful mother, Maria. We grew up on Lockwood and Crystal originally, right off the Division Street on the west side of Chicago. My mom was a nurse, LPN nurse specifically, that did pediatrics during the daytime. And anyone that knows anything about nursing, LPNs don't make no money. Especially back in the 80s, a black LPN in those times in Chicago was making almost to nothing. And she had a lot of mouths to feed. So she worked in the evenings doing the 3rd shift at a nursing home. So it was her, me, and my 2 sisters fending for ourselves on the west side of Chicago to start off with. And then we moved to the Austin neighborhood by Oak Park, or up in the Oak Park area, rather.
Where did you go to school?
I actually went to OPRF, yeah.
How was the school for you? What are your
school was great. Originally I went to one of the schools off of Division, and when I got a chance to go to high school in Oak Park, it opened me up to a little bit more diversity, specifically. Being able to be around people from different cultures and more. So it was a good experience. And I excelled in football. I excelled in architecture and design. Back then I was able to get into creative studies at an early age in high school specifically, to the point that I was able to graduate early from high school. So it was cool.
And you mentioned that till not the high school that you were part of the much diversity. A lot of people say Chicago, it's kind of
segregated.
Yes,
absolutely.
So you agree with?
Yeah. Well, when I say diversity, I don't mean that I was integrated and hanging out with different groups, but I mean the school in itself was still very much segregated. You have blacks sticking with blacks, you have browns sticking with browns, and then the white community sticking with the white community specifically. But it was just an opportunity to still be around fellow students from different cultures and backgrounds that it could still have an influence on you, even though it is segregated, versus being in an all-black school. From when I started off being in all-black schools.
I'm always curious about how that works as someone who grew up in a country where it's like one single race and one single culture and nothing. It's just we go and you just hang out with who you find the most interesting. I wanted to know how you get prepared for that. Does your mom tell you? Does your sisters tell you, hey, be careful.
Yeah, I mean,
How does kid learn?
you learn from an early age. Like, so I see my first witness, my first murder at the age of 5. My mom picked me up and my sisters up. My grandmother was watching us at the time, right off of Independence, 16th Street. Anyone from the West Side know how notorious 16th Street used to be. But yeah, we witnessed during that late night when she picked us up and on our way home, it was like a drunk driver under some type of influence hit this group of girls that was at the corner of that intersection. And then one of the little girls was dragging along, but as it was crossing, it came in the intersection and just kind of like veered and steered around her, but hit her, ended up clipping her. And she flipped up at least 15 feet in the air, no exaggeration, and landed on her side. And the adrenaline from that, she was able to get up and run. But all of this happened in real time. And the vice lords at the time, they seen all this unfolded at the corner, this group of vice lords, and just started shooting at the car. And you can just see his brains just blown out specifically.
Sorry, what's the word that you use? What?
Vice lords. Yeah.
That? Sorry.
That's a gang in Chicago.
Okay.
That was one of the biggest gangs at that time. Keep in mind, this is the 80s. This is not the 2025 where there's a lot of different fractions and sub-fractions and different gangs. But back then, people tend to forget that the origins and some of the beginning stages, especially here in Chicago, gangs was originally created and formed to protect communities and to help empower young black men. It was almost modeled off the Black Panther movement specifically. So gangs, obviously over the years, through different influences, have been demonized, rightfully so, in different capacities for the harm that's been caused over the years throughout our community. But originally, a lot of original gangs formed back in those days from 80s rolling back to the 70s and more was to help empower young black men. And that was one of what we call nation laws to protect our community. And those vice lords at the time, when they seen this hit and run, was responding in a way of protection or to sadly enforce it on themselves.
So what happened there is that the drunk driver hit the girl and then they killed him.
Yeah.
And you witnessed that. You were 5-year-old and you're watching all of this. You,
all of
your
this
family.
Happening. Yep.
What's your mom doing? Probably screaming, covering your eyes.
She told us, duck, get down. She on top of us, covering us, telling us, pushing us down in the car while it's all happening. And unfolding, and they scattered, and then she got out the car and make sure we're okay. And then she went to the little girl to attend to the little girl to make sure she was okay too. That was happening until
so
help came.
In the middle of the shooting, your mom exited the car.
After that cleared out. Yeah, once thing cleared out too. She made sure we was okay.
Were you scared? Were you scared? We say, "Mama, don't go. Stay with us."
No, even though it definitely wasn't my last time seeing something like that, but it really didn't scare me, if I'm being honest with you. It didn't scare me at all. And as people learn more about me and experience more about me and my background, it takes a lot. I've never been afraid of death in different ways, yeah. But it was definitely shocking to the immune system, I will say that. I think I was more so just in autopilot mode, like, but scared. I don't recall being scared, if I'm being honest with you.
That's probably like one of your earliest memories. I don't remember much when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I have a photographic memory. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did that experience change something in you later? Were you telling your friends what happened? Or could you even understand that at the 5 years old? Did your mom explain to you, oh, he died now,
She didn't explain. It was one of those things that we didn't talk about, and I went on to experience other things in my neighborhood and more, and experienced other deaths and seen a lot of drive-by shootings. Drive-by shootings was very popular, starting to become very popular because gangs are now being influenced by the crack epidemic that was happening in the 80s and more. And people was more interested in monetizing and making money versus protection of the community, which is a whole different set of context to cover how this drug was introduced specifically in Black and brown marginalized communities to really cause division and cause harm and just tear up these communities and these families, which it did. It definitely served its purpose of what a lot of us know to been openly admitted through different agencies, federal agencies, to help push this poison into our community. And it did a real number on us.
I want to know, since you said there was a mom and two sisters in your house, where was your dad?
Yeah, so my father, he and my mom pretty much separated when I was like 4 years old. My pops, he was, let's just say, he'll admit this too. He let the road own him. And him not owning the road, he just was a rolling stone and always out in the streets. And I was the youngest of his kids. He had like 9 kids by 9 different women, and he just wasn't really a heavy influence in that factor. He was not in the home. And so my mom got tired of that scenario, and they basically separated, mainly because can we cuss on this podcast?
I call it clean podcast.
Clean podcast.
So we'll beep you.
Oh, yeah, you will beep me? Okay, yeah. My father was just, he was just, he just was, let's just say he wasn't a traditional man in the sense of when it comes to romance. He got around a lot, and that was just his preference, yeah.
And then after they separated, he was not just much around. He
wasn't.
Were you asking for him? Were you as a kid asking, where is Dad?
For sure. My father would make promises to pick me up and never showed up, at times. Like I'd be that kid outside waiting on, like excited, like, because every young man growing up, no matter what you hear about your father, or if you even never seen your father, in your head, your dad is like your superhero. So I was waiting around for this guy to show up, and he'll never show up. He'll pick me up sometimes, scoop me up. But overall, not to demonize him, that was what he was at the time. I think he's a better person now. We have a relationship now, but I'm a forgiving guy, and but he wasn't an influence in my life at all. I grew up just with a mother that bust her ass providing for me and my 2 sisters, and did all she can. That woman made miracles happen. She was both at times mom and dad, for sure. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you are the youngest from of the kids from your father's side. Yeah. Were you ever in touch with the 9 of them?
No, not in that closeness in that scenario at all. Because I'm the youngest.
You could learn from them.
Yeah, versus when you're the youngest on both sides of your family dynamics, there's only so much you can do with communication. And we're talking about the 80s. We didn't have social media. We didn't have phones.
Yeah, that you can find them and text them and see their story.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, we're the same. We have the same father or the same mother. So it's different growing up in this technology where that probably would have been an opportunity, but I didn't grow up close to them at all. I knew
now,
of them.
You even are in touch with them?
No,
barely. No.
Being honest with you, no, not a close. I know a few of them, but yeah.
What about your sisters that you?
The
ones you grew up with.
Yeah, those my girls. We always bump heads, but I love those 2 women to death. Those are my 2 older sisters. The middle one saved my life one time. The oldest always treated me, like a traditional, like I'm her younger brother, and she always had to take on that role as the second in command. And she's very much headstrong and alpha in her Very, very strong masculine energy she has, and I love that. But that's why me and her got along. We have a lot in common. We're a lot like our mom and the middle one, you know. And I hope she won't get upset with me, but she had middle child syndrome.
Listen, I'm a middle child.
You're a middle child too?
I
okay.
Absolutely do,
Okay.
but I think that shaped me in life. Like that shaped so much of who I am and what I do and how I see things and how I fight for myself. But you mentioned the middle child saved your life. How so?
Yeah. So anyone that is listening to this podcast that's from Chicago probably heard of a park called the Lafayette Park. It's right on Laramie and Division. You can't miss. It's a big park, and it has right in the front to the corner of the I want to say the north side of the park is a field house, and in that field house is a pool in the inside, and that's where all the kids in the neighborhood would go swimming during the summertime. I didn't know how to swim.
Okay, do you know now?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And to my day ones, they know I used to do Ironman triathlons all the time. Retired, it's been like 10 years, but I was pretty good in triathlons. So yeah, I know I swim really well. But in this moment when I was a kid, I was the youngest of not only my siblings, but also my cousins. So we grew up in a family building. I grew up around all my amazing cousins. I love them. A lot of them are gone now. My male cousins, Booby, Walter, my cousin Matt came home a couple of years ago from serving like 20 plus years and more. And my uncle Matt and gone and all of that. But grew up in this family building, and all the kids, my cousins, because we viewed each other as like brothers and sisters too. As well. We had a very close-knit family. I was the smallest, the youngest. And you've been around me. You see I'm a pretty big dude. But, you know, and also the lightest, the most fair skin of this group of the Gants. That was our family name, the Gants. But they would always pick on me and bully me. They wouldn't let nobody on the outside of the family bully me. But they was hanging in the pool, you know, the older kids, and they, you know, they're taller and able to hold on to the rail. And some of them know how to swim. I didn't know how to swim. I was about 5, 6 years old at the time. About 7 actually. Yeah. And the water, I was in 3 feet, and I wanted to go be with them. You know, they was hanging out, you know, rough housing and slamming each other in the water, but I'm still young and I can't get over there to that water because I didn't know how to swim, but they kept egging me on, come on, Doc, come on. So I let go of the rail, and I'm trying, this is a big pool, and you can hear kids' voices echoing off the field house, like just yelling, and your voice gets drowned out of that. And as I'm drifting, trying to go to them, my body just starts floating, and my feet just starts to leave the floor. Because again, I'm like 6, 7 years old, small in that big pool. And I'm just like, oh, this is not where I'm thinking it was going. Like, and I was trying to go out to them. They was in your direction, and I'm over here. My body's floating towards the deep end. And I'm yelling like, oh, like now I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. So I tell you that nothing really scared. That in that moment, I was scared as hell for my life, because the water was starting to come up here, and I was like, you know, swallowing water, and I'm like fighting now for my life. I'm yelling, and my cousin Derek sees me. He's like, you know, he's screaming at me, yelling like, and no one, again, the pool is probably filled with like 50 kids or more in the field house, and it's
no one's paying attention.
No one's paying attention, but Derek sees me yelling at me, and then I'm just fighting for my life, trying to get to one of the rails of the pool as I'm going towards the deep end, literally drifting towards like 10, 12 feet. So now I'm in deep shit, like deep water, you know, per se. And Derek's running, and he grabs my hand, and as he grabbed my hand, it just slips, you know, and then I go under. And like a fetus, my arms just folded up, like the pressure, like natural. I don't know if you guys know, again, the listeners, anyone that has experienced drowning or near drowning or seen drowning, it's interesting how the human body just goes back into a fetal position, you know, and that's what happened. My body just formed like this, and I started spinning under the water, all the way to the bottom, to the point that I blacked out. Look, was starting to pass out, like I was starting to breathe in water.
Yeah, too much water.
And then I felt arms go around me, and then next thing you know, I'm blacked out, and then I wake up. It's my sister doing CPR, like pushing water out of me. She jumped in the water. She was a junior lifeguard at that pool. Derek yelled to her, and she dove in, and she swam to the bottom, grabbed me like she was taught, and pushed up all the way and brought me up to the surface of the water. And then when the adult lifeguards grabbed both of us and picked her up, because she was like 13 at the time.
Yeah, wow.
13-year-old little girl.
Good job, sister.
Saved her baby brother. Yeah, like, because I was spitting out water. But yeah, she saved my life. Yeah.
Good. I want to know now a little bit more about the family, because you said that a mom had to work a lot to provide for you guys.
She did.
So that probably means you struggled financially and didn't have much to do. What are some of the desires from the childhood that you had that you think you couldn't have and couldn't buy? And what are some of the things that you remember struggling for? Was it how are we going to pay rent, or how are we going to pay the bills, or was your mom sharing any of those with you guys?
No.
What do you remember from that type of your life?
One thing, my mom always hid the struggle as much as she could, but we knew. Like I would have to. I remember like it was yesterday. I would have to take recycled bathtubs, like waters. And honestly, I grew up. I used to hate taking a bath. We didn't take showers in those days. Honestly, if I'm being honest with you, I don't remember us having a shower here. I think it was just all bathtubs. Yeah. And since I'm the boy and I'm the youngest, I would have to wait till my sisters was done, and then I would have to get in that reused water, or my cousins, if I was being washed by my auntie downstairs, my wonderful auntie Sophie. I love her. And my other auntie Valerie, good people. But I would jump in this recycle cloudy tub water. That's how poor we was, because the water wouldn't stay hot, and once the hot water went out, it went out. And it was roach infested building. It was like there's sometimes you'll see baby roaches floating in the tub. I'm just being honest. My family don't like me talking about that, because it's embarrassing. I get it, but I can't hide what I experienced, and it just made us as a group and as a family just more resilient and stronger, so yeah, that was one of the first experiences when I knew, like, oh, we poor. Like, it's this 1-bedroom apartment, me, my sister, and me and my mother and my 2 sisters, and me and my 2 sisters, we would share the living room. That's like a room space where we'll sleep on the couch until we moved to the Austin community. And that's when my mom, so the whole time my mom was hustling, putting her money to the side, stacking her money, because she wanted us to go to a better school system and live in a better scenario. She just couldn't see her kids continue to live in this roach-infested apartment and building, surrounded by so much violence. Like, it was a lot of violence over there in the division streets, and she just wanted to put us in the better part of the west side of Chicago. And she did. She stacked her money and took out a huge loan. Her and my auntie put their money together, these 2 amazing women, and they moved us from this apartment, and they bought their first building together, 2-flat on Austin, right there on Austin and Hirsch and Greenfield area on the west side of Chicago, and it was a 2-flat. My auntie and my cousin stayed on that first floor unit, and then my grandmother eventually moved and stayed in the basement unit. My uncle renovated that and made that a unit, and then we stayed on the top floor. Me and my 2 sisters and my mother. But it was a 2-bedroom. My mom had a bedroom, and my sisters shared their bedroom together. And they put me on the sun porch, like a classic sun porch that wasn't ventilated. And I had to walk through the second bedroom, which was my sister's room, just to get to what was
like your room, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and look, my mom tried her best, like, for me to have at least my own room finally, because I didn't grow up in a house. I grew up in apartments my whole life. Yeah. I never owned a house or grew up in that had that opportunity to backyard, none of that stuff. It's been all concrete jungle, this whole time. And here I was in this small, we went from one small apartment to a little bigger apartment. But I appreciate the effort because she owned that building and there was no more roaches, you know, for one. For two.
How did she manage to buy the building? Like her job and saving and her sister job and saving, and they all put together and did a loan.
Upside down loan. It was definitely a predatory loan, without a doubt. They ended up eventually losing the building, but it was what we know of today, and what, you know, obviously I'm very financially educated in finances and loan, but it was an upside down loan, and it was during the time of redlining and more, and eventually it got repossessed because she couldn't afford it, because she wasn't chipping away at the equity at all, and it was our building, you know, it was our building that's the first piece of property she owned, and it was inspiring because she taught us that whenever you can, always own, then rent, then paying somebody else, mortgage specifically. So she held on to it for as long as she can so we can go to a better school system and for us to all have our own privacy. Yeah, I was on the sun porch that she converted to a room, but it's still my room. And yeah, I was, during the cold winter months, it was cold as hell because that structure is not part of that building. And I had 3 different space heaters in this little one sun porch. So I would get very, very cold in the winter. And in the summertime, it was a fucking sauna. It was like hot. And I had like this garage style door AC that you put through the window, freezing in. So yeah, that was life, you know, and I had to go to my 2 sisters, older sisters' bedroom just to get to my bedroom. But it was ours. It was our little home, and I don't have it's still special to me growing up. Even though we didn't grow up with a silver spoon and all like that, it's still special to us.
When you're understanding all of those things, and you said, like, I understood we are poor, is anything in your head passing by, oh, I'm going to make us money, or I'm going to help my mom and assist us? Tell me about those moments.
That's a really good segue. What got me into what I, you know, started doing, which is the street stuff. You know, like I started hustling.
And have you had a job like, you know, like a lot of kids at a McDonald's or like something like that?
No, I never worked in the restaurant business. But what
was your first job? Yeah, I
remember my first job was yesterday. So it was for this grocery store called Dominick's, actually.
Right? Dominick's.
Are they still around?
I'm not sure about that, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah, Dominick's was the biggest competitor to Jewel Osco. You heard of Jewel Osco?
Yeah, of course. No, that's all over still.
Yeah, but some of the listeners don't know, but the Chicago natives and the OGs know that Dominick's grocery store was the original Pete's. You know, like it was competing with Jewel Osco, and I was able to get a job as a bagger. I thought they was going to put me on as cashier. I was 15 at the time. And granted, I started hustling though, like doing my little nickel and dimes and doing my, you know, selling my, you know, my.
What did you spend your first money on, your first check when you got it? What did you do with it?
That's a good question. No one ever asked me that. Let me process. I think I spent it on, I didn't spend it. Actually, I stacked it. Yeah, I was stacking it because I kept putting, like when you talked about earlier, reinvesting in my product. So I kept putting it back to get more, bigger weight. Like I was like, all right, nickel and dime, it's time to go to 8 balls. 8 balls, it's time to go to ounces and half a kilo and all that. Yeah, I started elevating really fast. And yeah, that's why I spent it on right back into the business.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I want to know, how did you enter into your street hustles? How do you get into that? Do you meet someone who tells you, oh, you can be doing this? And were your motives a family? Oh, I'm got to support my mom and my sisters. And how you start doing the street work, and tell me what that street work is, what it started to be and what it escalated to be later on.
Again, these are all good questions. Many people don't ask these type of questions when it comes to when you sit down, talk to former drug dealers or D-boys, or how you want to call it. But I cannot speak for all generations. I can only speak for most of my generation from that timeline of the 80s and that culture, the black culture back then in the West Side, Chicago specifically back then. I can't speak on behalf of LA or New York. Yeah. I know innately they probably feel the same way what I'm getting ready to say. We always motivated. If you're going to go into that life to, you know, do what you need to do to make money for the family. it's not never about yourself. It's about moms. It's about your sisters. It's about your family. Most young black men in those 80s, we was all motivated to hustle so we can definitely
support family
and loved ones and friends and more. It wasn't for the glamour and fame, and you know, things have changed. I can't speak on behalf of what these kids do these days.
Doing now, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, and or the motives, but back then, you know, especially when this was just first introduced, it just seemed like a way. Like Biggie Smalls.
We're talking about you. We don't care what other people's motive are. Yours for the family. And but I want to know how does that happen? Like, if I now want to go out there and be selling drugs, I don't know how to do that. So
it's kind of it's let's just put it this way. My cousin Booby was one of my first. I don't get influenced by guys at all. I never been motivated like I want to be like this guy. I want to be like this guy at all. Again, as you get the chance to know me, I'm not one of those kids that's easy impressionable or was impressionable in the capacity. But Booby, he was the man. You know, he was. Imagine Michael Jackson before the surgery. You know, brown skin, curly fro hair, gold ropes, Nike flight suits, and driving around in the black Regal.
He was fly.
He was fly. Like, he was dope boy fresh. And he used to, tell me some things and show me some things and put me under his wing. And he was definitely an influence for me to start that trek. And
so your cousin was already doing that. That's how you're entering in that business, business.
Yeah, a lot of my family was involved in these this untraditional way of living, for sure.
And how old are you? First question is, have you ever participated in taking those things that you were selling?
No, I never took any drugs in my life at all. And that's what, and it should surprise people when I say that, because again, I tell them, I'm from the 80s, man. I'm not from the 90s or 2000. Yeah. And I'm natural selection, you know, God, you know, when I was created, I'm not engineered out of curiosity. Like, there's nothing in life that makes me want to check out the reality and to surrender my ego to a set of synthetic drugs or drugs from plants. Never been in me. I've never been curious about it. I never want to experience it. It just wasn't in me. You know, I just never been into it. I like to, every blue moon, socially drink, without a doubt, have a drink and stuff. But drugs, I never desired it. I've never been curious about it. It's just not. And I seen too many loved ones.
So not even weed. You never tried not even weed.
Well, are you defining weed as a drug? Yeah, I tried weed for sure. But that's it. If you want to define that as a drug,
I don't know. Like, it's that's why I wanted to know, because I've never tried any drug, not even weed. I always, when I say sentence, I never tried any drug, and I say not even weed, because I also am not sure where to classify it. But I never tried not even weed. But like, again, I did not were selling that when I was a kid, so it's a whole different story. Now learning.
Go ahead.
Now me learning that you were basically selling it and having it in your hands and never tried it. That's kind of weird, impressive, I would say.
No, a lot of guys from the 80s wasn't. Like, again, you know, you taught not to get high off your own supply. And then you see what it does to not only customers, community. I had an uncle that was strung out on cocaine and heroin, both. And the things he used to do to my family, you know, he would steal from his own mother, my grandmother, like take a stereo system and more just to go sell it for a bag of dope.
Were you feeling guilty that selling that to people who you so struggled?
Yeah, it did start to mess with me. It did, because you see what it was doing, and that was started me realizing that I need to get out the dope game. You know, meaning like I just was getting enough money, trying to accumulate enough.
How old are you when you're making your first transaction? Let's call it that way. When you're first time giving somebody drugs and they're giving you money in exchange.
My first transaction was happening like when I was in junior high. Yeah.
What is that? Well, how old is that?
That's like 13, 12.
13.
Yeah.
You're 13 years old and you're selling drugs.
13, 14, my first transaction. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know later in life you got in trouble, but did you get in trouble as a kid, or you were
Never been in and out. I've never been arrested for nothing in my life. When I first got indicted by the feds, and that was my first time ever being arrested for anything.
Yeah. And so how long that lasts from 13 to how long were you doing it, and what kind of drugs did it escalated? Like back in time, even weed was illegal. So were you selling weed too?
And going back to the weed topic, like I said, I hate the smell of weed. I never liked it. My homies and them, they were smoking it and they were puff pass, and I was always that. I tried it out. It just wasn't for me. So I was just.
I never tried it, but I was possibly passively high, because like that, I would be in a circle where it like joint is going around and it's just passing me, because I never want. Like the concept of smoking, it's just so nasty to me. I can't do a cigarette. I can do
I never had a cigarette in my life.
Yeah.
So funny you brought that up, because I used to take my mom. She was a smoker. She doesn't smoke anymore, but she was a big smoker. She'd smoke her cool pack of cigarettes, the green and white package. And I used to hate the smell. I used to hate going to school smelling like nicotine, like it'd be in my hair,
it gets in your clothes, everything.
And kids will be like at school, like, you stink, like. And when I come home, this is like a 6-year-old Dominick, all the way up to 10-year-old Dominick. I would take my mom's pack of cigarettes and ball it up and throw it in the garbage, and I got in trouble for it. Like I got in big trouble for it. My mom, definitely there was consequences to that, but I didn't care, because I hated the smell of those chemicals. It was so strong in my nose and more. But they didn't, she didn't know, a lot of people in the 80s and 70s didn't know better about what nicotine was doing, even in the secondhand smoke.
Listen, I'm same in my family. Do you know what's wild to me now? How you're saying all of those stories.
Yeah.
You and I were born on the different parts of the world, literally opposite parts of the world. Grow up on the opposite parts of the world. But some things are so similar.
Yeah.
Like first, as you're mentioning, is my cousins are my brothers, never cousins. Like we were not even allowed. Till today, sometimes I would say cousin for them, and my mom would get upset that I'm calling my cousins cousins.
Yeah.
Like it's always a brother. We start calling cousin when it's like 4th generation. When it's like a very far.
Agreed.
Everything else is like a brother and sister.
Yeah.
And same way, they bullied me, but no one else was allowed to bully me. My mom smoking, me thrashing out her cigarette and crying and begging her not to do that and hating the smell and stuff. So it's just so crazy how much similarities now that you are saying. The only thing is I was not selling drugs, okay? So let's go to back, because I'm so curious about that topic. And you said you were doing that for how long?
It was during my teenage timeline specifically. And I got out the dope game. Like I reached I hit some peaks without me going into too much details, but I was at the level where I end up eventually, and I stayed in school, and I had my first job because I wanted to, I was not one of those type of guys at 15 thinking like, I need to put something in someone's name or get a girlfriend of mine to go buy me something with it. I was very smart about it. Like I needed a check. That's one of the reasons why I was like, all right. And I also knew this is only temporary, because honestly, a lot of us didn't think we would live past the age of 18. And then when you got to 18, you're like, okay, I'm not going to get past 21. When you got to 21, you're like, okay, I'm not going to see 25. But
why did you think that? Sorry, I have to stop you. Why you think that you were going to get killed?
Yeah, because I was living that lifestyle that was very dangerous, and then everyone else around me was dying. Like, I had cousins after cousins and friends and loved ones being murdered because they was also in the dope gang, like it could have been something simple. I remember my cousin getting a call about my cousin Dre being shot in the back of the head over a game of dice when there was $10,000 in cash at stake, and back in those days, you cannot leave a dice game till everyone's broke, and they robbed him and shot him in the back of the head because he was just up when it comes to that. But,
So were you hiding that you had money once you make money from those?
I wasn't flamboyant. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. I was smart about it. I wasn't flamboyant. I mean, I had nice things. What I had the platinum chains. I had the Rolex. I had the Coogee sweaters.
Oh, yeah. So we were still spending it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know your age and stuff, and I don't know if you know anything about the 90s, but the 90s.
Yeah, well, I was born in 89.
Okay.
Okay, so
you grew up in some influence in the 90s.
Yeah.
So you understand. Remember the Coogee sweaters and the throwback jerseys?
Of course.
I had probably about 30 Coogee sweaters. Like 30 throwback jerseys. And you know, remember how much they cost a piece?
No.
Yeah. Coogee sweaters back then would run anywhere like $600 to $1,200 a sweater.
That's crazy.
In today's inflation, for anyone listening, that's like
I don't know, from $5,000 to $10,000.
That's like, that's like $3,000 to $5,000 a day for a sweater.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, was your mom aware that you have money? You're still living with her, right? You're now 15.
Well, it
16.
depends on what timeline we're talking about. You know what I mean? But in short, no, my mother didn't find out the hard truth until she was sitting during my federal arraignment indictment. And I remember looking back at her and seeing the pain in her face, because she did all she could, and she just couldn't believe this was the end scenario.
The outcome.
And,
Now, I want to know how old you were when that happened, so now I understand.
I got indicted when I was like 21.
21.
Yeah, like 21.
So when you are like 17, 18 and you have those Rolexes and those expensive sweaters, is your mom realizing that? Do you live with her in that moment?
I lived with her, but also lived in other places too. Like I was running the streets, you know, like I had girlfriends here and there. Yeah,
so she didn't know, basically, my son has this unreasonable money that I need to know where it's coming from.
Because I wasn't being flashy about it. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, but
Rolex is pretty flashy, let me tell you.
Oh, I never brought the Rolex.
Oh yeah, or probably maybe she didn't even know. My mom would probably not know what a Rolex looks like.
Yeah,
she would think it's like just another watch.
Yeah, like there's times I would not bring any jewelry around certain folks and family. Like I would, it was like I was living a double life, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah. You know, I was living a double life. At home, one way.
And you were sober. It's not like you were using drugs so that your mom can recognize that something it's wrong. You were just yourself, but you know, you had this side.
She did. Now that you brought that up, though, I do remember her going in my closet for. I think she was cleaning out, doing some spring cleaning. I think I was like 14 at the time, and she seen a box of nickel bags, empty, nothing in there, but it was a bunch of them, nickel bags, and we had an argument, a discussion about. She's like, "What is this?" And I was just,
and what is that? I don't even know what.
Yeah, it's the bag that holds the dope in there, you know, like the little bags, little plastic.
So they were empty. You had them there.
They was empty. I never kept my product at my mother's house. That was against my rules.
Okay. Yeah. And I want to know who you are getting products from so that you're able to sell them.
Yeah.
That's not for the podcast.
Yeah, it's not for the podcast. No, we can't go into too much about that.
Because I'm so curious, how does the young boy, you said started at 13 years old, but connections, cousins, and things
I had a couple plugs, you know.
And were you had to pay for that and sell it for a bigger price. That's how you were making money. And then the money that you were making, you would use to buy more, and then
you kept investing.
And it's just all of that.
It's like running a business. It is. You invest in yourself.
Oh, it's absolutely a business.
Yeah, it's just a business.
No, I understand. It's like, you know, I sell stuff. They're just approved by the federal laws. So I know how selling stuff works. But anyway, are you ever in fear? Are you aware that what you're doing, I know you're aware that it's illegal, but are you aware that you could get arrested any moment?
Yeah, that was always on my mind. And that's why, so I always, again, I had that eerie feeling at times, like time is going to end. You know, it's only what goes up always got to come down when you're cutting corners. And I'm going to repeat that. What goes up, if you're doing anything illegal and cutting corners and it's just unethical, it has to come down. It will come down. It may not come down right away, but it will come down. And I knew eventually things would crash. And that's why I got out the game when I did. I retired early from the dope game. I went to school. I went to college. I started off my first year at SIU Carbondale. Then I went to Columbia. And during my second year in college, a childhood friend reached out to me. At this time, we had what was called, anybody in Chicago know what a drought is. You know, that terminology, a drought, means there's just no dope going through the streets. That means because there was either a big bust by the feds, or the streets are just too hot to release product on it because the feds is watching, you know, or a task force, state task force is watching. You'd be surprised how much intel gangs have, especially when you hit those high levels, which is what I did. And a childhood friend reached out to me because there was a drought on the south side of Chicago at the time, and they needed work, you know, because it's like being unemployed. They gotta get work out there. And at that time, it's only a handful of dudes can make it rain or punch a green light to be able to get something flooding through the streets. I was out the game, but I still was able to push a green button, if that makes sense. Like I still was very much connected and juiced in that scenario. And it was brought to me, and he was being pressured. I didn't know it at the time, but he was begging me to do basically one last score to take care of this. Let's do this deal, you know, where it was a deal to help, you know, remove this drought, specifically from the south side of Chicago, which is funny because I'm from the west side, and everything about anybody that knows anything about west side dealers versus south side dealers and more, it's just certain things you say no to. And it's like comparing Brooklyn to Harlem, two different types of communities. And they have their own set of problems. It's like we had our own set of problems. But this is a childhood friend of mine that I trusted. And I said no. But he kept coming back to me for months, like begging me to make this deal happen because he was getting pressured from people that he was connected to. And I pulled him to the side. I said, listen, what's your deal, man? He wasn't even into that street life thing. Right? You know, what's going on? And he was like, man, they just asking me. I'm just trying to make it happen. You know, I was like, you vouch for these dudes? And anytime a guy from the street asks you, do you vouch for someone? If you're going to put your credibility on the line for that person, and you say yes, you just put your whole life in danger. You as an individual. So if I come to you, or you come to me and say, Dom, do you vouch for John over there in the corner?
And you vouch and John screws me over and I come and kill you.
There you
I
go.
understand
you
that.
said it, not me.
Good.
You know, yeah. It's a very serious thing to do in the street. It's a code of ethics. No matter the coast, everybody knows in the street, when you vouch for another man, you basically giving that other person the permission to, you know, whatever is going to happen. If it turns out to be a bad deal, it's going to be bad for you.
And was that a bad deal for you?
Yeah, it was a setup the whole time. Yeah.
So
they set him up to set me up.
Is this leading to an arrest?
This did lead to the arrest.
Okay, that's what I want to know, because I want us to focus on the arrest now, you know.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening. Like, you're basically being a setup.
Yeah, I was set up.
And what? You're somewhere waiting to sell something and police is showing up.
It was a deal that I green lighted, and eventually, after being pressured a lot, when he said yes, I was like, okay. And that was the biggest mistake of my life, and it ended up being a deal because he was being set up. He was used as a pawn to get to me by two informants. He wasn't an informant, but the two guys pressuring him, who he was related to, was two federal informants. Yeah, so that deal got green light, and next thing you know, when the deal for the transaction for the kilos was supposed to go down, and I just knew something was off. Next thing you know, I'm surrounded by 30 federal agents from DEA, FBI, and ATF. Surrounded me, grabbed me, roughed me up.
Where are you at? Where is this happening?
This is right off the Dan Ryan.
So it's on the street. You're in Chicago. It's not that you're home.
It's not even in my hood. It's not even in my community. It's on the south side of Chicago.
So you went all the way to south side. You're about to do your transaction with kilos. We said there were kilos involved.
Kilos involved.
And you're surrounded now by police cars and everything. And
Federal, not police. This is federal agents, federal agencies. I know people don't really have.
I don't know much about that,
so,
but anyway, you are arrested at that point.
Yeah, just to give you an idea. I feel like, again, in this picture that you and I, in this flashback of what we're talking about, this is early 2000s. Like, this is around 2000.
Yeah, when you're getting arrested,
like
2000 something?
Yeah, like this is like 2001, 2000 era. Then when all this is going down, 2001, 2002 era. Around that timeline. Anything rolling back from that time to the 90s and 80s. And the federal government, so imagine you getting handed a piece of paper, not by the people of Cook County, not by the people of the city of Chicago, not by the people for the state of Illinois coming out to you, but your government, the United States of America, the people of the United States of America versus you, Neman.
Yeah, I understand.
You feel like a terrorist. Like it's the worst and most scariest piece of document to read, and it's the most scariest feeling to have in the world for a young man that was barely 21, 22, getting ready in college, getting ready to finish college and being handed, this indictment paper is scary shit. And I know... Are
you getting arrested on spot? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And I know we live in a day and age where people don't fear police or agencies more, but back then you did fear them. Back then, that's one thing.
I mean, especially if you're doing something illegal, of course you're gonna be feared.
And you might don't. Back then, dealing with the state is dealing with the state, but when you're dealing with the feds, you're like, oh, this is real. Like, and again, the culture now, so many people don't respect or fear law enforcement of any fraction, from state to federal and local. But let me tell you, back then, it was a different type of society, and it still is. So those of you that don't fear them, you just don't want to be fighting your own federal government. It's not fun, because you're going to sit down and do some time, mandatory too. And that's what we was facing. We had what we called an entrapment case. I hired one of the best attorneys that money could buy at the time that I was able to afford with cash. And he sat me down. We went through the whole discovery and evidence and like that. And we had a strong case for what's called entrapment. They was creating this deal. They forced it to happen. It's not like I was out here looking for trouble. I'm in college and working a full-time job at the same time. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm out the dope game. So basically, they came looking for me.
Yes, okay.
I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm trying to live my life, trying to move away from that. And they came looking for me. And even after I said no a lot of times, but they kept putting the pressure.
Pushing, yeah.
Then they used a childhood friend of mine as a pawn to get to me. So those are good, strong arguments to have for an entrapment case. But he came to me and told me that, we can go to trial and fight the government. We can fight them for entrapment. But if you lose, you're not coming home until you're in your 30s. You've never been arrested. You in college. You still got your future ahead of you. You and I both know. And this is the first time that a black man at that, with those credentials, set me down to have a heart-to-heart with me. And he told me that this is what's called karma. And I was like, what's karma? I never heard that terminology. He's like, karma, young man, is basically when you have done something wrong, it's going to come back to haunt you in some way. And that stuck with me. He said, you and I both know you're not innocent. Sure, there's an entrapment case, but they could have had you for worse. It could have been a worse scenario. But you and I both know, this is what consequences and what you've done in the past, and it's coming back to basically, it's like the Grand Reaper coming to pay you a visit. You have options, and here's your options. And I thought about that. And he said, you're going to do some time. You can take full responsibility. We can do what's called a blind plea. We're not cooperating. You take full responsibility, as you should, as I did, morally and ethically did. And the judge would give us what he gave us.
What he gave you? So
essentially, because the government argued that, he's not cooperating, he's a late bloomer and all that. A lot. They basically legally called me every name in the book but the child of God. Made me seem like I was such a terrible person and all that, because that's what they do. That's what they do. They don't highlight all the good things I have done over the years for my community, as an athlete, school for architecture and design, graduated from high school early, facing, I had some odds facing me, but I still, I still was on at least the right path to rewrite my wrongs at the time. But they essentially gave me like a 10-year sentence, 5 years of hard time and 5 years of house arrest. I ended up doing about few years, and got 3 off of that, or 2 to 3 off of that. And then I came home and did house arrest for 2 years. And I was able to get that remaining house arrest removed because I was a role model citizen. I was able to get in corporate America, get my entry-level job back when I first got indicted. And
so you spent total time, is it called jail or prison? I'm
prison.
Prison, okay.
Yeah.
You spent
jail is just a slang term.
Like I'm so confused with when people say one another. So you spent 3 full years in prison. Where?
Close to 3, yeah. I served time, started off at MCC Chicago, which is not prison. That's a detention holding facility. Until you're shipped to your actual prison to serve your time out in your sentence. You
were there waiting trial, basically. In the first one, you were just waiting.
Well, waiting to get shipped. Once I pleaded out and took full responsibility and got sentenced, I was waiting to get shipped out, and I got shipped out to Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah. And
was that harder for your family to come and visit you?
Why? That's over 1,000 miles. Yeah.
So why they did that?
They do that for anytime you're in the federal system. They ship you. You can have your indictment go down to LA. You could be doing time in Arkansas. You can be in Arkansas doing time in Montana, Chicago. You all over. Like, they don't care unless you like heavily politically connected, like former governor Blagojevich or whatever his name is, Rob Blagojevich. If you're connected politically, you can probably get stationed close to, based on your security level and your political ties, close to Chicago, if it's done in Chicago. But no, I went from Minnesota, and then I went to Colorado, and then I came back.
So during your time in prison, is your family able to come and visit you and check on you? How does that work?
Yeah. My mom, amazing woman. She...
You said she was shocked with the whole situation. She didn't expect that.
I broke her heart. That's the first time I broke my mom, legitimately broke my mom's heart. Like, I would never forget the day when I looked back into the bullpen, or the people that's there during your arraignment when they was reading my charges. The pain I seen in my mom's face. It takes a lot for me to get emotional and shed tears. When I see my mom just crying, it's basically she was looking at her son as if he was in a casket, and it broke my heart. It broke me down. Like, I had big tears in my eyes when I seen how bad I hurt my mom, and I made myself a promise I would never hurt that woman again, and I haven't to this day, because I put her, all her life she worked so hard to do what she can with the little she was given for all her kids, and I'm her only son. And for me to put her through that experience, I don't care if I was doing it for her. I would never do that again. If you could tell me, if I could go back in time, I tell people this all the time, if I could go back in time, I would do it again, because it did make me a better man. I wouldn't be talking to you right now for that.
Yeah.
But to remove that pain, if I could go back in time to remove
your mom's pain,
that pain, and just to hold her and protect her, I would have did everything at all costs to avoid that pain, because it was horrible what I did to put her through that experience. But yeah, she did come and visit me.
I have a hard question. If that did not happen to you, if you did not get set up and arrested, do you think you would continue leading that lifestyle?
No, I was retired. Keep in mind, when I got indicted, I was out the dope game. I would have been a successful architecture designer right now, probably with my own firm. And I think I still would have been vegan, because I had it in me. We skipped over a lot of when it comes to my compassion. Like, I used to break up dog fights, and I've been a big animal lover since a kid. But yeah, I think I would have been this very famous
Well, then let's talk
designer.
about your veganism. It's so insane to me that someone who is in such a bad position your freedom, it's taken away. You're living in a cell. How on earth are you even thinking or considering somebody else's situation, such as animals that 99% of the earth just doesn't care about?
Yeah. I was sitting in my cell like that first week or two at the most, thinking about what the hell I'm doing here and trying to figure out what's the meaning of life and where do I go from here. And I got down on my knees in my cell at the time, MCC Chicago. Anybody that's been downtown know how pretty much intimidating and how dark of a structure that is. That's in the middle of downtown Chicago. This high rise that's a holding cell for federal inmates. But I got in my cell while everybody else was outside their cell on the deck during the rec time and more, and prayed. And everything, I prayed about this situation and what do I go from here? I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, without a doubt. But I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher power and energy. I just think we get caught up with our own biases and the naming and the branding and more, which is a whole different topic. But universally, I think we all can identify with something greater than us being God. And I talked to God. I got on my knees trying to get answers, and everything pointed to this childhood memory. When I was 8 years old, my mother would feed us chicken wings, and I would look at those wings, and I was always a picky, finicky eater all the time. Like, if anyone listening, put your hands up, just relax them. They naturally curve up the palms of your hand, and if you look the way they're designed, just naturally let them relax on the side of your waist or even in your lap. They naturally want to go up. That's for picking. Nothing natural about them turning over looking like claws. It's made for grabbing and clawing. You know, we're not carnivores. We're more fruitarian and herbivores than anything, you know, by design. But everything in that memory, up until that point, 8 years old, my mom would always fight with me about anything being attached to a bone structure. And it was in that moment I was looking at those wings, and I looked at my arms and looked at those wings. I was like, I can't do it. And I pushed back and I said, I don't want this. She was like, why? I was like, they look like little bitty arms. And this is in the 80s. She didn't have Google.
Yeah,
she didn't
even know what
books.
Vegan or vegetarian even was. Yeah.
So you telling a struggling single black mom that barely is able to put food on the table that you don't want her pork chops or chicken wings, because you can innately see. My intuition said, like, this is from a dead animal. She didn't know what to do, and it was in that moment when she was like, well, you're not going to eat. But I'm gonna chip off the old block. And I was like, well, then I'm not gonna eat. Okay, I'm not gonna eat. You know, and we bump heads. We had a little standoff at that moment, and that's how she raised me to speak my mind respectfully. You know, I couldn't really go like a hard, or I got popped in the mouth. But she ended up going to the grocery store and buying fish sticks. So what she learned in that moment, that it's the way it's engineered in the presentation, the aesthetic of the food, that this 8-year-old kid of hers is turned off by the fact that it does look like it was coming from an animal, a dead animal, you know, versus something that's nicely aesthetically stuffed in some breading of a chicken nugget or a fish stick that you can eat. And so I ended up eating a lot of fish sticks, but that memory in that prayer came up, and it was like a light bulb, like, get it. And I received messaging in that prayer that basically you could be an 8-year-old Dominick or an 80-year-old Dominick. If you don't follow the signs and you don't believe in some things that the universe is trying to show you or God is trying to tell you, it will come back in a form of sickness or freedom or financial harm. That's what's called, like my lawyer said, karma. And that's very, very real. And I was experiencing karma. This is the consequences for me ignoring my first set of messaging, which is who I ended up becoming, this compassionate man. It was always in me, innately in me, but I was like, And that's right then and there, I decided to do a hard reset, a hard spiritual reset. And I created this mantra that if it requires harm, then no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So I denounced and stopped eating meat right then and there. and never looked back. I became vegetarian in prison, and eventually went on when I came home to be vegan. And it's been 24 years. Yeah.
Yes. So your main motive is, I just don't want to do any sort of harm. You're now in jail. You're in prison. You're in a cell. You're praying. You're thinking about karma, and you're deciding, I don't want to do any sort of harm to anyone. And you extend that not just to the humans, but to animals as well.
Humans are animals too. So extend it to everyone. Human animals and non-human animals. Absolutely.
So you say, I don't want to participate in this, and I don't want to be eating meat.
Yeah.
How does prison react to that? That's now a question.
How does the community of prison react to that? That's
not
really
just
good.
that, but even how is food sourced for you? Did they have an option for you, or it was you will eat a chicken wing or you will not eat at all?
So they did not have options. I believe in today's system, from state to federal, they do give inmates options now for religious purposes and beliefs. But they had certain restrictions and limitations to those that did clarify in their, before they entered the system, in their PSI and all that work, that, oh, he's a devoted Muslim, or he's, whatever reasoning your beliefs is that calls for you not to have a very special diet. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I get that.
But back then we didn't have as many options. It was like either one or two options, but it was heavily drenched in animal oils and products and more. But I didn't have that in my PSI, so I wasn't eligible. So what I would do is trade my meat protein with my cellmates for their carbs. So I end up eating a lot of simple and complex carbs. And my cellmates thought I was crazy and weird. They used to be like,
for giving the best part, basically.
Like, what's wrong with you, dude? They couldn't believe this. They was like, you want to trade my pasta for your chicken wings? I was like, yeah, give it over, hand it over. And so, that's what I end up doing. Between the little money that I was able to save on commissary from going to the commissary, my mom sent me what she could. I would buy fruits and vegetables off of commissary, and then I would buy fruits and vegetables directly from other inmates that was hustling out of their locker or hustling out of the kitchen. Then I would make my own little meals in the form of, I ate a lot of ramen noodles, so many ramen noodles, so many, so much oatmeal, a lot of oatmeal, so much rice, what we had called dirty rice. We would put 180 water into this garbage bag, clear garbage bag plastic. They issue us like little small garbage bags for our little garbage can that was in the cells and the holding areas and more. And as your security level came down, you'd be in like kind of like a open cell, which was cool too as well. But this bag, we'll put the hot rice in there 180 and balloon it up. And I just dice a bunch of vegetables in that. Some guys would put mackerels and tunas in it or meat in it. And I just had a bunch of veggies in it. It was like, and with soy and more.
And you survived that like that for 3 years.
Yeah. So I went in there about 257, close to 260. I was over 250 pounds. In 2 months, when I stopped eating meat, all that inflammation receded. The lowest I got down to in prison was like 187, 190. But all that's from losing that inflammation. But I became stronger than ever. I was benching heavy. I was squatting heavy. We will have what's called lift-offs. And in our specific prison in Minnesota, and even in Colorado, the population was like 800 to 1,200. And I was always in the top 10, squatting heavy, easy, deadlifting over 500 pounds like it was nothing.
So you build a lot of muscles.
A lot of muscle. You can't see it on this sweater, but there's a lot of muscle.
I know. You can still see.
Yeah.
You can still see.
But yeah, I was cut. I had like probably 3% body fat.
Mm-hmm.
It was the closest I felt to a superhero, that transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just strong. And they couldn't, we didn't have the documentaries of the world. We didn't have these books out here that would tell you about the science and the data of what a plant-based diet can do to the human body.
You could just feel it.
Yeah, I was just my own walking experiment. And people thought I was gonna wither away. I remember telling my mom on the phone, like, "Yo, I don't eat meat." She was like, "Oh my," she now she really worried. She's like, what's going on?
It's like you're in prison. I have to worry, and now you don't want to eat.
Yeah. You coming home as a monk, a renewed spirit. Like I was just, I was on my Zen shit. Yeah, I was like I was full confident who I was and who I was becoming. I was finally becoming the human I was destined to become. No more bullshit. No more nonsense.
What was the hardest in prison?
The hardest? Probably when I went to the hole. When this individual, historically I would call him a coward. But I'm older now and I have a chance to forgive him after what he done. So what a lot of people don't know about me, I'm really good at chess. I've been playing chess since I've been 5 years old.
Stop.
You play chess?
Of course.
Oh,
Stop. You did not see chess at Kill My Name? No,
I didn't.
It was next to us.
Oh, we should be
like we have to go back.
Yeah,
we have to go back.
We had to play. Yeah.
Okay, I love. Yeah. Like I may not be like I'm not playing stuff. Anyway, chess. Go ahead. Goodness.
Yeah. I've been playing since I've been 5. My mom showed me how to play chess.
Okay, my dad showed me how to play chess. Okay, good.
I'm pretty damn good. So good in prison. That's how I spent a lot of my downtime playing chess. And my record in prison, I probably won about over 85% of my chess games and lost about 15% of them. There's some really good players in there, but I was really good. And this guy I was playing called St. Louis, he beat me. We was playing for push-ups. People would play for commissary, but I didn't believe in betting and wasting my mom's hard-earned money that she was sending to me when she could. On a game.
Yeah, so you were
like, that's disrespectful.
You were betting on
unethical. I would bet on push-ups. And so we would do push-ups. So if I lose the game or he lose the game, you had to do one set of 100. There's no stopping. You do the full 100. So you just burn out. And most guys in the joint, you can do a set of 100 push-ups when you like in top shape. And I could. And he beat me right before count. And he was like, all right, come off that, because he was excited. It's not easy to beat me. But I was rushing because I was like, we got to get the count. Because if you're not at your cell and by your bed during 4 o'clock count, and you fuck up their count, they were walking around the prison and make sure nobody escaped. They would send you to the hole. You don't want to fuck up a CO's count time. And he knew that. And he's like, no, give it to me now. And we was in a rec room. I was like, dude, you need to get the count. What's going on with you? Like, it's like literally 1 minute to go, the count. I was like, I'm not going to give it to you. And he's like, man, I want my I said, after the count, dude. And I said it like, I basically said, fuck you. After the count, stared him down, just like I'm looking at you now. Then I turned my back, and that's when it blacked out. He took a metal chair. He's about my size, too. One of those folded classic metal heavy chairs. Swung it with all his might, hit me in the back of my head, and knocked me unconscious. My cellmate, Ty, found me on the floor unconscious while he was kicking me while I was just unconscious. And I ended up having like temporary amnesia. And I ended up going to the hole for that because once I came to and realized who I was and I just couldn't cooperate with the investigating correctional officer because
of what happened. Yeah. So they punished you basically.
Yeah, because I wanted him to myself. Once I realized who I was and how I got in that scenario, I didn't want them to go get him. I wanted to get him myself. And any human being that's been in a life or death situation where someone almost took your life, I don't care how compassionate you are, especially a young human with a young mind. Only thing on my mind was revenge at that time. So because I wouldn't cooperate, they knew who did it to me. They put me in a hole, and I was in a hole for exactly 40 nights.
Oh, 40 nights.
40 nights. And the hole, to give you an idea, is 3 steel doors to get to you. There's no ventilation going through there. There's no sunlight going through there. There's a camera in the corner. You're only let out for 1 hour, Monday through Friday, 1 hour a day. So you're on lockdown 23 hours, 5 days a week. And you let out in this little other holding cell with an opening rooftop to walk around in a little circle that's the size of this carpet right here. Then you go back in, down, locked down for 23 hours. And on weekends, you lock down 2 days, 24 hours. You don't get no sunlight at all. And it fucks with you. It does.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the most inhumane and most challenging experience I experienced.
You had there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, goodness. Listen, now you're out, and what your life looks like after that. Like, you know, tell me in 3 minutes. I don't know how, but tell me in 3 minutes your life from that.
I got it on my feet, got back in. So I ended up getting in corporate America and working in healthcare. My professional background at post-prison was I excelled in healthcare, became a successful healthcare executive, resigned, and eventually put my money to the side to start my first company. I created the first company of its kind from a sustainable clothing, and I had the largest vegan clothing company in the world. People on my day ones remember Crazies and Weirdos was the name of the clothing company. Eat What Elephants Eat shirt to this day was the #1 selling vegan shirt in the world. And I went on to start its sister company, Eat What Elephants Eat, the food company, which is successful. Subscription-based model of thousands and thousands, over 10,000 subscribers and growing. And now we got a best-selling book out. We have a movie we shooting this summer based on my life story. And we have a
is it fictional movie or documentary?
No, it's a motion picture.
Oh, what, like that's fictional, right? Somebody's going to play you.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know who?
Correct.
Do we know who?
We're actually finalizing that next week.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But we have a really great cast that I can't wait to announce. Really amazing cast of people that's special and dear to me. Yeah.
Perfect. And I want to know now just what your veganism looks like. What you stayed then vegan for how long? You said 20?
I've been vegan now 14, 15 years. Prior to that, I was vegetarian for 10 years. So it's been like 24 years. Yeah.
Since you did not eat meat.
Yeah.
And your main reason for that were the animals, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. First, it was always for the animals, but then later finding out what it can do for your health, what it can do for the environment, and not to mention the whole intersectional part of veganism, which is basically just do your best to not do harm in general. Yeah. To humans or non-humans. Yeah. And
I want to ask, I try to do a little bit of activism. You know, I'm not with a sign on the street or anything like that, but I try. I try to talk on my podcast as much as I can about activism.
Yeah.
A lot of people will always respond to me with, not everyone can be vegan. It's for the privilege. It's for the white. It's for all of those things. Well, you are the living proof. You were in the most horrific conditions of your life. Like you don't even have your freedom. Yeah. And you made it work because you were motivated with compassion.
Correct.
So what do we say to all of those people who are taking least privilege as an excuse? They're privileged, but they're taking somebody else. They'll tell me, oh, what about kids that are dying around the world? But I was like, I'm not talking that they should be vegan, but I'm saying you should be vegan. So what do we say to those people who are using somebody else's situation as an excuse to still continuing exploiting animals on a daily level?
It's really, it depends on the messenger, right? I remember talking to Rich Roll about this when him and I first talked about this years ago on his podcast. And for example, Rich or you or our producer here and more can go into circles that I may not be accepted in, where those communities identify more with you all. Same thing for me. I can go into communities that you simply can't walk in. You can't go on the west side of Chicago and tell a bunch of young dudes on the corner that they need to go vegan. They'll probably hurt you or laugh at you. But they may listen more attentively to me, especially if they know who I am and where I come from. So it's really like, it's like looking at the Avengers. Some people are going to love Ironman. Some people are going to hate Ironman. Some people are going to love Thor. Some people are going to hate Thor. We can't get upset as activists or people that want to see people convert to veganism all because our message fell on their deaf ears. So you have to look at that as the messenger and continue to you know, stay the course and communicate what you can to your community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to go outside of your community, but just don't feel defeated by that purpose, because some people are just not ready to change, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's 8 billion people, over 8 billion people in this world,
Mm-hmm.
waking up tomorrow with 8 billion different points of views
Mm-hmm.
and billions of different homes. That's called diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have a vegan world, but in reality, that's just not where we at right now. So we can only try to do what we can to go to those that are willing to listen
Mm-hmm.
and be open to compassion, and not waste our times on those people with small minds and closed minds that want to tell you that nonsense about privilege, especially if they're living here in America, where we have the resources and the education to do better, just do better, which is bigger than veganism itself.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that what you're saying, that try to, I always want to talk to everyone. I want everyone to hear my message. So that's really good advice. And then you, as you said, not only that, like through your appearance and to all the things that you were able to build your body and to be an athlete and all of those things, you're showing people that it's not true that veganism will make you weak or
Nah, it's gonna do the opposite.
Compassion is beautiful. It's
Compassion is
beautiful
so
and it's
beautiful.
strong and it's brave and but besides all of that, you are very active in a vegan world. You're on social media where like you're constantly creating a wonderful content. And now your book. Tell us about your book.
Yeah, the book, we released it in January. It's a really good selling book. It's called Eat What Elephants Eat. We teach people how to find their why, you know, how to stop, and also how to crowd it out, how to go tofurkey specifically. But we give you all that we talked about on this podcast with respect to my origins. You get that in the first chapter. It's a hybrid, but you get that autobiography. But then you get this wealth of information that's sort of like your guide in the form of in a book, your spiritual guide. That's in the form of a
And
book.
it has a bunch of recipes.
Amazing recipes, whole plant-based recipes, not junk food recipes, but whole plant-based recipes for the gentle spirit in you. That's what elephants are, gentle spirits. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You heard people, get book, Eat What Elephants Eat. You can find it anywhere where you find your books, but you can also find online. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect with me online. I'm on Instagram at Doms Thompson, DOMZTHOMPSON, Doms Thompson.
Beautiful. I'll add that on the screen too, so people have the information. That makes me really happy. I had so many more questions, but we'll just go.
We got to do a
so
part
much
two
that
one day.
Absolutely.
When we finish wrapping the movie, because I can talk about everyone, including a very we have the movie thing is gonna blow your mind. But yeah, if you would give me that honor, I would love to come back later on this fall and we can talk about that project for sure.
I absolutely would love to talk that, and I would love to ask you all of my remaining questions, because in my mind there were so many, and I kind of want to learn a little bit more of all the things you have done in the past. 20 lives on a freedom, more than 20. How old were you? You were 25 when you exited prison, right?
No, I was like 26 actually.
26.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
so
20,
basically
25, 26, yeah.
last 20 years.
But I spent my whole 20s dealing with the
Yeah.
judicial system because I was on house arrest, had to pay back restitution, had to get it. I was on in halfway. It's a lot that happened during my 20s when I still was dealing with the judicial system. Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned your biggest mistake ever in life was listening to that guy who told you to go and proceed with your last deal or whatever it was. After everything that you've been through, and you said that it made you a man that you are now, do you still think in a sense that it's a good that it happened that way?
Yes. Not because I had the resources or a great support system in or out of prisons, because when a human hits rock bottom, when they just can't go no lower than they are, there's only one way to go, and that's up. And that's when I found myself. We are organisms. We forget that. Organisms are made to move forward. And it was in that scenario that it just felt so natural and so right to move in the right direction. And I never stopped moving in the right direction since then. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, I'm so happy that I got a chance to learn a little bit more about you. As I said, I will have more questions in the part 2. But congratulations on your book. Congratulations that you're doing so well. Everyone listening to this, please get the book. It's beautiful, and a lot of wonderful recipes, and connect with this wonderful man who I love how you lead with compassion. It's just so important.
You too.
Thank you, but it just makes me so happy when I meet people like you who still are active and doing the gym and bodybuilding and all the things, and still maintaining all of that on a vegan diet. It just makes it, you're big and strong and, a little dangerous and survive bad things, survive the prison and stuff, and you still can find the compassion to speak for the animals. Like, I think it carries a little bit more weight than when I do it.
No, we are all doing our part. Don't you ever forget that. Again, remember, we're all different messengers in our own ways.
I am trying, but I appreciate you. I'm so grateful that this community has you, and thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today, and promise to play chess with me, okay?
Absolutely. That's a bet.
Okay. We'll see how many push-ups once I've done 50 push-ups at the same time in my life, I was sore for a week. Okay. So I don't think I'm ever doing that again. And it was also part of the bet. And it was in a kitchen floor in a restaurant.
Over chess?
But no, it was not over chess.
I was going to say, we got another thing in common. Yeah.
Chess, I'm yet to lose. I'm just kidding. I'm not that good, but I am a good chess player.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Really, seriously, thank you.
What a story. It really justifies the name of my podcast. It was absolutely extraordinary. Something I've never heard before. The situation that this man found himself in, and how he prevailed and find a compassion and veganism is just so inspiring. And I really hope that we are leaving you inspired after this episode as much as I'm feeling. And after all of it, as always, I want you to remember that if there's anyone out there telling you how you're too extra or too much, you can tell them to go and find less. I love you.